Many people ask, what type of world do we live in? Why are there rich and poor? Why are wars waged? And what is the reason for the deterioration of the environment? What awaits us next? To get the answers to these questions, you should turn to science and start with the realization of a simple fact. In the 21st century, the entire planet is dominated by the capitalist system. Capitalism is the last and most developed of the antagonistic formations, based on private property and the exploitation of man by man. It differs from its predecessors, such as feudalism and slavery, by the special nature of the combination of the means of production and labor. Under capitalism, the means of production, for example, factories, machinery, or land, belong entirely to the class of large proprietors, the capitalists, while the direct producers, the class of workers, own only their labor and are forced to sell it to the capitalists in order to survive. As a result, due to the lack of ownership of the means of production, most of the population, despite personal freedom, is economically dependent on the capitalists. In the process of labor, workers not only reproduce the value of their labor power, but also create surplus value, which is appropriated by the capitalists and is the source of their enrichment. Production in the capitalist system is conducted only for the sake of profit. In order to maximize their wealth, the capitalists compete with each other and try to squeeze as much profit out of the workers as possible. The countless army of the unemployed is designed to reduce the cost of labor, increasing the profit of the capitalists and the degree of exploitation of the workers. Relying on their economic power, the capitalists seized state power and made the state their instrument. The police, army, and officials served the interests of capital by suppressing the working class. Predicated on this exploitation, the economic basis creates a corresponding ideological superstructure. Bourgeois science, law, and morality are designed to inspire the idea of the naturalness of exploitation, proclaiming capitalism the most perfect and unchangeable system which corresponds to the nature of man. Since the goods produced by the workers are appropriated by the capitalists, the workers are alienated from the results of their labor and lose interest in work, which turns into a mechanical routine and punishment. The dominance of competition under capitalism alienates people from one another, creates constant anxiety and uncertainty about the future. If a person does not have wealth and cannot resist the competition, he becomes a means to enrich others. Money as the main goal in life, the endless pursuit of profit, and consumer attitudes towards one another tramples on the dignity of man and reduces his intellectual demands. Poor quality of education and low-grade popular culture, together with the promotion of consumer lifestyles, makes it difficult to assess scientific knowledge. About 1.5 billion people live in extreme poverty, and nearly 3 billion people survive on less than $2 a day. At the same time, in the hands of the 9.5% of the wealthiest people is almost 85% of the world's wealth, and the state of the 26 richest oligarchs is comparable to the wealth of almost 4 billion poor. Moreover, the wealth of the richest capitalists is growing every year. From July 2017 to the end of July 2018, the number of millionaires increased by almost 2.5 million to a total of 42 million people. In a year, they got richer by another $900 billion. In 2018, the fortune of the richest man in the world, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, reached $112 billion. For comparison, even 1% of this amount will be enough to cover the healthcare costs of Ethiopia, with a population of 105 million people. While the fortunes of the capitalists are steadily rising, the incomes of the poor half of humanity have declined by 11% over the same period. The whole course of development of capitalist production and competition leads to the concentration and centralization of production and capital in the hands of a few powerful capitalists and capitalist unions, which displace weaker competitors. Thus, the modern, highest, and last stage of the development of capitalism, imperialism, or monopolistic capitalism, was reached. Imperialism is distinguished by 5 special features. Monopolies have acquired a decisive role in the economic life of capitalist countries. Bank capital merged with industrial capital to form financial capital. Domination in economic and political life belongs to the financial oligarchy. In contrast to the export of goods, The export of capital to dependent countries has become particularly important. International monopolistic unions of capitalists were formed, dividing the world among themselves into spheres of influence. The territorial division of the earth by the largest capitalist powers is finished. Imperialism is a decaying and dying capitalism. Despite the fact that the development of productive forces in the era of imperialism does not stop, and sometimes in some sectors and countries is even faster than in the era of monopoly capitalism, this development is extremely uneven and catastrophic. Being monopolistic masters in certain branches of production, capitalists dictate their prices for goods and buy patents for inventions to stop competitors from applying them in production. This tendency to technical stagnation and to the decay of imperialism is especially intensified during the general capitalist crisis. In the era of imperialism, the uneven economic and political development of the capitalist countries intensified and acquired a qualitatively different character. A small group of the most developed imperialist powers exploits and plunders dependent and semi-dependent countries, with hundreds of millions of inhabitants, providing their oligarchs with huge profits. In addition, with the help of part of the super profits from dependent countries, the bourgeoisie of the imperialist states bribes the upper strata of the upper working class, which becomes the carrier of opportunism in the labor movement and the main social support of the bourgeoisie. Over time, the uneven development of capitalist countries leads to the sharp imbalance within the world system of capitalism. Those groups of capitalist countries that consider themselves less provided with raw materials and markets usually make attempts to change the situation and remake the spheres of influence in their favor through the use of armed force. As a result, the capitalist world is divided into hostile camps and war begins between them. It was in this way that the First World War broke out after the first crisis of the capitalist system. As a result of the second crisis, the aggressive imperialist powers unleashed a new war, including against the USSR, the first socialist state. Only at the cost of tens of millions of lives, and thanks to the heroism of the Soviet people, as well as the presence of a strong planned socialist economy, the state of the working class was able to withstand the blow of German imperialism and lead the liberation struggle to emerge victorious from the battle with fascism. Despite the fact that imperialist wars are still considered by capitalists as the only means of ensuring the rise of capitalist economy, they can only delay the crisis and economic catastrophe for a while, but they cannot prevent them. The death of capitalism is inevitable. The law of uneven development in the period of imperialism means not only the abrupt development of countries, the rapid displacement of some countries from the world market by others, and regular wars. The uneven development of capitalist countries exacerbates conflicts in the imperialist camp, weakens the front of world capitalism, and also leads to the possibility of a breakthrough of this front by the working class of individual countries, and the victory of socialism in individual countries. Today, capitalism has reached a stage of development where it is no longer compatible as an economic and social system with the modern productive forces. By its very nature, capitalist economy is spontaneous and anarchic. Despite the fact that the goods produced under capitalism are the product of the labor of the whole society, they are produced blindly, not knowing how many of the same products will be produced by others, what is the need for these products, and whether they will find a market. Ultimately, all of this gives rise to a phenomenon that constantly accompanies capitalism called the Overproduction Crisis. At the moment of the aggravation of crisis of overproduction, there is a mass immobilization of one enterprise after another. Millions of workers are thrown out of the production process, which condemns them to starvation. The poverty and hunger of wage earners under capitalism come from the excess of goods produced by them, and the lack of effective demand is a consequence of the extremely low, poverty-stricken standard of living of the masses to which capitalism condemns them. During crisis of overproduction, not only the finished goods are destroyed, but also the productive forces are destroyed. Workers are being displaced, machinery and equipment of enterprises fall into disrepair. Capitalist ownership of the means of production has become a brake on the development of productive forces. The competition and anarchy of production under imperialism is not only eliminated, but only intensified, thus further aggravating the capitalist contradictions and the growing inequality of the capitalist countries. In addition to the mass impoverishment of the population, conflicts of monopolies, regular wars, and economic collapses in recent years, the problem of ecological crisis has also become increasingly urgent. The irrational and predatory exploitation of natural resources by imperialist monopolies for profit has reached such proportions that it has become a threat to human health, the growth of industrial production, and the increase of the food supply. According to scientists, 75% of the land, 40% of the world's oceans, and 50% of river waters are actively degraded due to human activity. More than 40% of amphibians, 33% of coral reefs, and more than a third of marine mammals are threatened. A third of marine fish resources are caught in an irrational way. About 30% of the 24,000 species of fish are threatened with extinction. 33.5 thousand species of plants are threatened with extinction. 11% of all species of birds and mammals are threatened with extinction, and another 14% are already on the way to extinction. Extinction threatens 10% of insect species, and if the trend continues, by the end of the century on Earth, they may not remain at all, which will radically change the entire biosphere of the planet. In addition, the depletion of land has decreased its fertility for a quarter of the planet. Such phenomena as soil, water, and air pollution, deforestation, the destruction of wildlife, the growing shortage of drinking water, and a deterioration of food quality are the consequences of the existing parasitic system of capitalism, driven by the pursuit of profit at any price. Environmental damage has a direct impact on the lives and health of billions of people, as well as the risk of becoming a real disaster for all of mankind. The ecological crisis is one of the signs of the deep decay of the capitalist system and a factor in the deepening of the capitalist crisis. Regular imperialist wars, endless crises of overproduction, rising poverty, and unemployment, all this clearly shows that modern capitalism, having developed the productive forces to colossal proportions, has turned into a rotting system, which is mired in insoluble contradictions and has become a brake on the development of mankind. But capitalism is not the last socioeconomic formation. Like the slave and feudal system, capitalism is only one of the historically transitory forms of production and social life. Already within the capitalist system, the productive forces spontaneously mature, and material and technical prerequisites for the socialist mode of production and the new socioeconomic formation, communism, are being created. Based on the planned organization of production, collective labor, and social property, communism will meet the needs of all workers, put an end to the exploitation and class oppression forever, will direct the achievements of science and technology for the benefit of all mankind, will solve environmental problems, will lead to the elimination of the division of labor, and will create such living conditions under which everyone will have the opportunity to develop and live with dignity. Despite the failures of the first attempts to build communism, the only force capable of crushing capitalism and creating a communist society is still the working class and its organized vanguard, represented by the Communist Party. Only by realizing themselves as a class and arming themselves with scientific Marxist-Leninist theory will the workers be able to fight back against the capitalist, to establish its authority, and to proceed to the construction of communism, forever putting an end to capitalism. Stay tuned.